You're listening to the January 16th, 2016 reading of Blossom Goodchild's channeling with the Federation of Light.
Here we are again. I look forward to seeing what you may care to speak of today.
Welcome to each one. It is fitting that we encompass that which benefits the whole. Therefore, this day, we have chosen to speak to you of something a little different, as was suggested. We would care to speak to you of wormholes.
Really? Struth! That took me completely by surprise. Be my guest.
It is complimentary to both ourselves and those of your planet to discuss such matters in these new times. Yet, it wouldn't be correct to say that these wormholes are something that have just arrived.
I'm surprised you're calling them wormholes. I thought portal or vortex would befit you more.
It matters not which technical term is used. The fact remains that we wish to speak about them.
Jolly D.
It is a complex matter, and yet, we assure you, they can pop up anywhere. It is as if they can be created wherever one would like. This, though, is for the more advanced soul. Yet, we reiterate, this is possible. Yet for now, we shall speak of ones that are there, already in place, and of use.
So, I must just ask, is the Bermuda Triangle one?
Naturally. And by this we mean naturally. It is not one that is created when needed. It is there of its own accord. It is not created and put in place by man.
So man can do this? I've heard there are some around to get across our planet quickly, yet I did not know they were created by man.
Yes. There are those created by both on- and off-world beings. We would say with tongue-in-cheek that those created by off-worlders are far more efficient.
So explain first, if you would, their exact purpose.
They are energetically charged spaces that take one outside of time and space, enabling transportation to be instant from one place, space, to another.
I can see why that would be very complicated.
More so in the eyes of the human, who has little knowledge of all that is possible, for all is indeed possible. These creations are able to take one from one dimension into another. They are able to take one from anywhere to anywhere, depending on where they are programmed to go.
So would you program one to take you to somewhere and then another time program it to take you somewhere else, as opposed to it taking you to one place and that was the only destination possible through it?
That is correct. And yet, the man-made ones are not yet that sophisticated. It took great skills, time, and money to create a replica that made sense, let alone had the desired effect. What you must try and understand is that your planet, as a whole, has allowed itself to imagine that it is very limited. Yet, technology is right there at one's fingertips, should the veil of secrecy be lifted. These wormholes are commonplace on other planets. You see, your universe is vast, and yet it is all the one energy. Therefore, all of it is accessible because it is not separate from itself. It cannot be separate from itself. Everything, as you know, is energy. So it is just a matter of molding this energy into a form that allows transportation to take place. Yet, we must stress that it takes practice for the recipient to undergo such a feat, without it having some form of physical effect on the body and indeed the mind. For when one is traveling at such speed, for want of a better word, beyond that of any of your racing cars, etc., it is inevitable that there is a pull on the self that can leave one very much out of sorts until one gets used to it.
So one cannot just go to other planets, etc., yet go back or forward in time, like in the time machine movies.
Indeed, for life is all going on at the same time. There is only now. One is merely traveling to a different space of the now. If you think logically, it seems feasible that one should get to go anywhere they choose. Such restrictions one has put upon themselves through that which they are taught. Yet, if one was to surrender into the oneness, the all that is, and become it, why on earth would it not be possible to be off earth whenever one chose? It is not just that the world is your oyster. Everything is. It is yours. It is ours. It is there for the taking. To experience everything in any way which one chooses. You have heard of many souls being able to travel elsewhere via their minds. In other words, for their soul to visit other places. These wormholes allow one to physically go there and interact in the physical as opposed to the spiritual. There are too many uses, purposes, to explain why and when they are used. Yet, we are here to tell you that they certainly do exist.
Is it possible for one to be walking along one day and poof, there they are, swept up and swirled through into another world?
Yes.
Without warning, without preparation?
Yes.
And would this be luck of the draw, or something to do with one's energy or life plan? I mean, could another soul be walking past the same spot and nothing happen?
Yes.
And why is that?
Because of the experiencer being ready to experience that. There would be no harm done. One could feel they had stayed in the new destination for months, and yet then be transported back and find only minutes had ticked by, if that. It could even be just a breath away. For many, when this happens, and it does happen to many, it is just an experience, as we say, a sort of why not, as opposed to why. Yet, for some, the purpose goes far deeper. In their consciousness, they may not have yet seen it coming. Yet, in their awareness of what is to be done on a personal level, for, say, the betterment of mankind, the higher good, it takes place, and what knowledge is gained from elsewhere, perhaps in one's future, is then brought back and taken into account in order to be of benefit to all. You would be quite amazed at how things of this nature have changed the course of history. And to complicate that even further, and to get your minds ticking, we would say, and yet perhaps 5 other scenarios of that same course were carried out on a parallel timeline. Nothing, dearest ones, nothing is as it seems, and it really doesn't matter. We know, Blossom, you have had issues regarding this kind of statement in the past. Yet you are coming to terms with it a little more now, are you not?
Yes, I am. What was once my truth doesn't mean it still is. This I am also learning. Look, I feel a bit preschool level in that which I've asked on this matter. A rocket scientist would have squeezed so much more out of you. I didn't really know where to run with it. Through a portal, perhaps.
Do not underestimate that which is offered, Blossom. For bear in mind, there shall be those that read our words and have traveled through one, and those that did not and still don't believe in their existence and the possibility of.
Yeah, I guess so. What am I like? I asked you to talk of something else. You did, and I'm still not satisfied. Gotta laugh. Many thanks for popping in.
It was no trouble at all. The telepathic way is far easier on your energy than the physical one.
Now, wouldn't that be something?
Indeed. We take our leave in, of, through, as love.
Later on that day, it's me again. It's now early evening and I just feel a little disgruntled. I just feel unfinished on this topic. Do you desire to carry on for a bit?
We would be happy to do so. Explain to us, please, your dismay.
Well, I just feel that perhaps we can bring more light to such an intriguing topic.
Ask a question, by all means.
Okay. Say one was to know or discover where a portal was. Would they simply be able to enter it? What does it take to go through?
A great deal. Yet we are talking regarding a human on, from, your planet Earth. As we said, it is very much easier from other worlds. It is much more commonplace. Because the density of the human frame, form, and also the density that surrounds the actual portal. And also the fact that such technology has been dismissed and discarded by the average Joe, and kept for those who have power of many things that they should not have power over.
So, was the average Joe once able to transport in this way?
Easily. Your world was a much lighter place in many aspects of itself. You were all much lighter upon this world in many aspects of yourself. You are moving into a time when such things shall again be commonplace. Yet, we would add, much has to occur before this is so.
Okay, so back to, what does it take to go through?
On another planet? Thought. On yours? Preparation, instruments, electricity, control. Shall we go on?
It's okay. I get the gist. Why can we not simply do it by thought then? Because of the density, as you say?
Yes. And yet, as we said, there are those that can.
Are they lighter than others, or just more knowledgeable? Perhaps more accepting?
They are aware of thought patterns that are required.
Yet you said earlier, one could just stumble upon a portal and wham! There they are, in another dimension.
And it is so, Blossom. Please understand that there are many, 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 many scenarios to many, 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 many situations. There is really very rarely anything that is set in stone. For energy is ever changing through thought. There is not just one way to do something. There can be 1,000, and yet only 5 may be in use at this time, because the other 995 have not been thought yet.
I think the trouble is, if that's the right word, I'm trying to get answers from you, when actually there are none. Or perhaps I should say, when there is no one answer to anything. Anything and everything is on the plate. It just depends on what one fancies for lunch.
This is so very correct and intelligently described, dearest Blossom.
Oh, why, thank you.
Our task is perhaps becoming more and more difficult due to this fact. For you have mentioned of stepping things up a little. Yet, you see here, we can never get to the bottom of anything with you, because there isn't one.
An endless hole. Back to, then, with the wormhole, is it a bit like, or to put it in layman's terms, a bus has a particular route from A to B. When it arrives at B, That's where it stops, and it turns round and goes back again. Do wormholes have A to B?
No. They have A to Z, with the entire alphabet and more in between. As we said before, Blossom, it would depend on where they were programmed to come through.
The person or the portal?
The portal. Yet, it is not uncommon for one to come through in a place completely off the radar.
What happens then?
Some have been lost and unable to return.
So, where are they?
It is unknown by the programmers.
So the said lost person can't just hop back on board, back through the portal?
Not always, because the portal can quite easily dysfunction and close, unable to reopen.
Well, how awful for the lost soul.
Why? Who is to say they are not experiencing a far better quality of life elsewhere?
Good point. Can you talk a little bit then about the kind of wormholes that can just appear when needed?
They are not so different from the set-up ones, in the sense of the transportation of energy part, in the sense of how they operate. Yet these ones are programmed, how would we say, more from the being of the soul, from the soul. In other words, the energy of the being traveling is able to instantly create enough of the type of energy required to literally zoom off from any given point.
Do you mean they would dematerialize, as in Star Trek, etc., and then rematerialize at their desired destination?
This indeed can happen. Yet, that is another matter entirely, and not the same as the wormhole experience. A completely different form of thought and energy are used. When one accepts, appreciates how to manipulate energy, there is nothing, absolutely nothing, that cannot be achieved.
Maybe you could give us a few pointers on how to do that next time.
We would be happy to.
Well, I look forward to that. Thanks, guys. I feel better now. I feel the channeling today is complete. I didn't before. Jolly Dee, that's sorted. Loving you.
Loving all.